Okay, so today we're going to dive into something a
Okay.
little bit heavier.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to tackle the topic of infidelity.
Oh, yeah.
And I know
That's a big one.
that can be kind of sensitive, a
Definitely.
sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But we're working with this article from prevention.com
Uh-huh.
called 19 Warning Signs Your Partner is Cheating on You, according to therapists.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly light reading,
No.
but if you're here,
Right.
you're probably looking for some answers.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a better understanding of
Sure.
the psychology behind it all.
Definitely the psychology behind it is fascinating and
Yeah.
really important to understand.
And the article jumps right into these two main types of cheating, physical and emotional.
Right.
Both involve breaking those relationship boundaries,
Yeah.
even if it's not always a physical act.
Of course, because even
Okay.
emotional infidelity can be just as damaging to a
That's right.
relationship. Yeah.
Because it involves a breach of trust and intimacy.
Yeah. And
Needs
that's
to be...
what makes it even more complex.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what makes it even more complex is that element of secrecy.
Yes, exactly.
It's that hidden nature of cheating
Yeah.
that often makes it so difficult to detect.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the cheater is actively trying to keep
Right.
their actions concealed,
Right.
which leads us to the signs,
Right.
right?
There's signs.
The article lists 19 of them, and
Okay.
some are,
Yeah, some really jumped out at me.
oh yeah,
Like sudden unreachability,
Yeah.
especially if your partner
right.
usually has a predictable schedule. That shift in communication can be a red flag.
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
And when we think about the psychology behind that,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
totally.
The cheater needs
Hmm.
privacy and uninterrupted time
Right.
to connect with the other person.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to avoid you overhearing a conversation.
Or noticing they're somewhere they shouldn't be.
It's like they're creating a separate world,
Exactly.
keeping you out of it.
Yeah, it's like
That's pretty unsettling.
it's a compartmentalization
Yeah.
of their life,
Yeah.
and it's definitely unsettling.
And then there's the whole libido thing.
Yes.
The article says it can go both ways.
Uh-huh.
A decrease because they're
Right.
getting it elsewhere.
Right.
Or an increase out
Yes.
of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even trying to preemptively satisfy you.
Yes.
So you won't be looking for it later.
It's like a preemptive attempt at
Yeah.
damage control.
Yeah.
They might be feeling guilty and trying to overcompensate or
Mm.
distract you from their actions.
Wow. It's fascinating how guilt can manifest in such different ways.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, this next one really surprised me.
Okay.
Gift-giving overload.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a psychological reason
Absolutely.
why a cheater might shower their partner with gifts?
There's definitely a psychological reason behind that.
Okay.
It's not just about guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about trying to buy your affection or silence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of easing their own conscience.
Oh, wow.
Perhaps thinking that if they spoil you with gifts,
All right.
you'll be less likely to suspect anything.
So it's not about the gifts themselves. It's
Exactly.
about the motivation behind them.
It's the underlying intention.
And speaking of motivation,
Yes.
the article points out a tactic
Okay.
that's just straight up manipulative,
Right.
accusing you of cheating.
That's classic.
And deflection.
It's a classic deflection technique.
Yeah.
By putting you on the defensive,
Right.
they shift the focus away from their own actions.
Exactly.
It's also a way to create confusion and insecurity
Oh, yeah.
in the relationship,
Really.
making you less likely to question their behavior.
It's almost like they're projecting their own guilt onto you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's projection.
Which brings us to this idea of cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
The article explains it as this psychological discomfort that happens when our actions
Yeah.
don't match up with our beliefs.
When our actions and our beliefs are in conflict.
Yeah. Can you break that down a little more
Sure.
for us?
Imagine you're a generally good person
Okay.
who believes in honesty and fidelity,
Mm-hmm.
but now you're cheating on your partner.
Right.
That creates a huge conflict in your mind.
Right.
To ease that discomfort, you might start justifying your actions,
Yeah.
telling yourself things like,
Okay.
well, my partner isn't giving me enough attention,
Right.
or they deserve this because of that one thing they did.
Right.
It's a way of minimizing the guilt
Yeah.
and rationalizing the behavior.
So they're essentially building a case against you
Exactly.
in their own mind
It's self-justification.
to make themselves feel less bad
Yes.
about what they're doing.
It's a way to
Yeah.
reduce that cognitive dissonance that they're
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah.
And this cognitive dissonance can also manifest in other ways,
Okay.
like becoming suddenly hypercritical of you,
Okay.
nitpicking everything you do.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like They're trying to find fault with you
Right.
to justify their own
To
actions.
justify their own behavior.
And then there's the seemingly innocent question.
Yeah.
What are you up to today?
Right.
But when it becomes an obsessive need to know your whereabouts, that's when it gets suspicious.
Yes, because now it's not about genuine interests.
Right.
It's about control and opportunity.
Right.
They need to know your schedule so they can plan their own activities around it, making
Yeah.
sure they have those windows of opportunity for
Yeah.
the affair.
So it's all about maintaining that facade of normalcy
Exactly.
while secretly leading this other life.
Yeah, that's a double life.
It's kind of chilling when you think about it.
It is a bit chilling when you think about the level of
Right.
deception
Yeah.
and manipulation that's involved.
It really is.
And it highlights how infidelity is often more than just a physical act. It's a complex web
Yeah.
of psychological justifications,
Right.
manipulations, and attempts at self-preservation.
Okay, so we've touched on some of the more overt signs, like sudden unreachability and gift-giving overload.
Right. Those are some of the more obvious ones.
Right. But the article also mentions some signs
Okay.
that are a bit more subtle,
All right.
more about a shift in the emotional dynamic of
Yeah.
the relationship.
Those can be
than-
even more difficult to pinpoint
Right.
because they're not always as clear-cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Like emotional unavailability.
Yes.
The article describes it as the partner becoming withdrawn, offering empty responses,
Yeah.
maybe even seeming distant
Right.
emotionally.
This could be a sign that their emotional energy is being directed elsewhere. They might be preoccupied with the affair
Yeah.
and therefore less present
Totally.
in the existing relationship.
It's like they're emotionally checked out,
Exactly.
even if they're physically there.
Yeah, they're physically present,
Right.
but emotionally absent.
And then there's this hypercritical behavior we talked about earlier.
Yes.
It's like they're constantly finding fault with you,
Right.
maybe even nitpicking everything you do.
And again, this ties back to that need for justification.
Yeah.
By highlighting your
Oh.
perceived flaws.
Right.
The cheater is essentially trying to convince themselves
Yeah.
that they have a valid reason for straying.
It's a way of shifting blame,
That's-
making themselves feel less guilty
Yes.
about their actions.
It's about easing that internal discomfort
It's so
and
it's
rationalizing their behavior.
complex.
It is complex.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that these are just potential signs,
Right.
not definitive proof. One sign alone
Yeah.
might not mean anything.
Right.
It's about looking for clusters of changes,
Yeah.
sudden shifts in behavior,
Yeah.
and patterns that don't add up.
Right.
Yeah,
And most importantly, trusting your gut feeling.
absolutely.
If something feels off,
Yes.
it's worth exploring.
Yeah.
Having an open and honest conversation with your partner.
That's key.
Right.
Communication is key in any relationship,
Yeah.
but especially when trust is potentially at stake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it can be so easy to just dismiss those gut feelings,
Yeah.
especially when you're in love and you want to believe the best
Totally.
about your partner.
Yeah.
But our intuition is often picking up on those subtle cues and
Yeah.
inconsistencies
Yeah.
that our conscious mind might miss.
It's like that saying, love is blind, right?
Exactly.
We might be so focused on
Yeah.
wanting the relationship to work
Right.
that we just overlook those red flags.
We overlook those red flags.
Yeah.
Completely. And that's why it's important to be self-aware
Right.
and to pay attention to those gut feelings.
Yeah.
If something feels off,
Yeah.
it's worth exploring,
Yeah.
even if it's uncomfortable.
The article also mentions some signs
Okay.
that are less about emotional shifts
Okay.
and more about specific actions or behaviors.
Okay.
For example, unexplained expenses.
Yes.
Or sudden changes in spending habits.
Right. That ties back to the secrecy we talked about earlier.
Right.
If a partner is spending money on the affair,
Right.
gifts,
Right.
dates,
Yeah.
hotels,
Mhm.
they'll likely try to keep those expenses hidden.
It's not just about the money itself.
No.
It's about the lack of transparency,
Exactly.
the potential deception involved.
Right.
It erodes trust
Yeah.
when financial matters become shrouded in secrecy.
Absolutely. Financial infidelity is
Yeah.
a form of betrayal as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
And speaking of secrecy, the article also mentions
Okay.
that a cheating partner's friends
Okay.
might act differently around you.
Because they're in on it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
They might know about the affair
Right.
or have witnessed suspicious behavior.
So they know something's up.
Yeah, they know something's up, and that
Yeah.
makes things awkward.
Right.
They might be uncomfortable with the situation, feeling caught in the middle.
Mhm.
They might be trying to be loyal to their friend while
Yeah.
also feeling conflicted about the deception.
So their awkwardness or evasiveness
Exactly.
could be a sign
Yeah, it could be a red flag.
that something's not right.
Right.
That's really interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a subtle sign,
Yeah.
but it can be significant.
The article also talks about
Okay.
how a cheating partner
Yeah.
might suddenly become super interested in
Oh,
your schedule.
Right.
Like wanting to know exactly where you'll be and when.
That's about control and opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
They need to know your whereabouts
Yeah.
to plan their own activities, making sure they have those windows of opportunity
Yeah.
to connect with the other person.
It's like they're strategically planning their time
Exactly.
around your schedule.
They need to make sure that their schedules don't overlap
Yeah.
and that they have those blocks of time
Wow.
available.
Which is pretty manipulative
It is manipulative when you
Yeah.
think about it.
when you think about it.
And it highlights
Yeah.
how cheating often involves a level of calculation
Right.
and planning.
Yeah.
It's not always
Mm.
a spontaneous act of passion.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From emotional unavailability
Yeah.
to unexplained expenses.
Right.
But I think it's important to reiterate
That's
that
just crucial.
noticing one or two of these signs
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean your partner is cheating.
Absolutely not.
Right.
It's about looking for patterns,
Mm-hmm.
a cluster of changes.
Right. That seem out of character
Yeah.
and don't align with their usual behavior.
Yeah. And even then,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that these are just potential red flags.
Exactly.
Not definitive proof.
They're not conclusive evidence.
Right.
They're just things to be aware of.
So what should someone do if they're noticing these signs?
Well, the most important step
Yep.
is to have an open and honest conversation with your
Right.
partner.
Right.
It might be uncomfortable,
Of course.
but it's the only way to address those concerns directly
Right.
and potentially work through them together.
The article emphasizes approaching this conversation
Okay.
from a place of curiosity,
Yes,
not accusation.
that's crucial.
Can you talk a little more about that?
Sure, it's about expressing
Yeah.
your observations and feelings
Yeah.
without jumping to conclusions.
Right.
It's not about attacking your partner or
Right.
launching into a blame game.
Right.
It's about creating a safe space for dialogue where both partners feel heard and respected,
Yeah.
even if the conversation is difficult.
It's about saying,
Yeah.
I've noticed these changes.
Right.
And I'm feeling uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about this?
Exactly.
And it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this conversation might not be easy
Right.
and it might not have the outcome you're hoping for.
It might not.
Right.
But it's a crucial step
Right.
in honoring yourself
Yeah.
and the relationship.
Absolutely.
And even if the conversation doesn't resolve everything,
Yeah.
it can provide valuable insights
Right.
and help you make more informed decisions about
Yeah.
the future.
Whether that's working towards rebuilding trust or
Yeah.
choosing to move on.
Exactly.
It's about taking control of the situation
Yes.
rather than letting those doubts and anxieties fester.
Letting those doubts and anxieties fester is never healthy.
And it's important to remember
Yes.
that even if your partner denies cheating,
Mm-hmm.
if you still feel uneasy or distrustful,
Right.
those feelings are valid.
Your feelings are always valid and deserve to be addressed.
This whole conversation has been really insightful,
Good. I'm glad.
but I know it can be a lot to process.
It is a lot depressing.
It's a heavy topic,
Yes.
and it can be overwhelming to think about all these potential signs and
Right,
what
yeah.
they might mean.
Yeah. It's important to approach this topic with sensitivity and compassion,
Mm.
both for yourself and for your partner,
Right.
and to remember that every relationship is unique and
Yeah.
there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Our goal here is to provide you with information
Exactly.
to help you understand the complexities of this issue
Mm-hmm.
and to empower you
Yes.
to make your own informed decisions.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And to reiterate,
Right.
open and honest communication is essential.
Yeah.
In any relationship,
Yeah.
regardless of the circumstances.
Right.
It's the foundation of trust,
Yeah.
intimacy, and
Yeah.
mutual respect.
So if you're noticing some of these signs
Yeah.
and feeling that unease,
Yeah.
where do you go from there?
Well, first, remember that knowledge is power.
Right.
You've now got a framework
Mm-hmm.
for understanding potential red flags,
Yeah.
and that in itself
Nice.
can be incredibly empowering.
Right. It's not about becoming hypervigilant or
Okay.
suspicious of every little thing.
Yeah.
But having that awareness
Yeah.
can help you navigate this situation
Yeah. Right.
with more clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the most important step
Right.
is to have that open and honest conversation with your partner. It
Yeah.
might be uncomfortable,
Of course.
but it's the only way to address those concerns directly and
Yeah.
potentially work through them together.
The article emphasizes
Yeah.
approaching this conversation from a place of curiosity,
Yes.
not accusation.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
It's about expressing your observations and feelings without jumping to conclusions.
Right.
It's about giving your partner the space to
Well-
share their perspective as well.
And it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this conversation might not be easy,
Right.
and it might not have the outcome you're hoping for.
Right. It might not.
Right.
But it's a crucial step
Mhm.
in honoring yourself and the relationship.
Absolutely.
And even if the conversation doesn't resolve everything,
Right.
it can provide valuable insights
Right.
and help you make more informed decisions about your future,
Yeah.
whether that's working towards rebuilding trust or choosing to move on.
It's about taking control of the situation.
Yes.
Rather than letting those doubts and anxieties fester.
Right. You don't want to let those negative emotions
Right.
control you. And
Yeah.
remember, you deserve to be in a relationship
Yeah.
where you feel safe,
Right.
respected,
Right.
and loved.
Of course.
And that starts with honest communication. Yeah.
And mutual trust.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the signs of cheating,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought-provoking question.
Sure.
If you were to have an open and honest conversation with your partner
Hmm.
about trust and boundaries,
Yeah.
what are your non-negotiables?
Good question.
What are the things
Yeah.
that are absolutely essential for you
Mm-hmm.
to feel secure and respected in the relationship?
Take some time to reflect on that.
Yeah.
Because knowing your own needs and values
Yeah.
is the first step
Right.
in creating the kind of relationship you deserve.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up
Read is
in the fear and the uncertainty
right.
when you're dealing with these kinds of issues.
Right.
But I think what you're saying is that knowledge
Yes.
and self-awareness
Those are key.
are crucial.
Absolutely understanding the potential signs
Right.
can help you approach the situation
Right.
with more clarity and confidence.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming
Paranoid or suspicious,
right.
but about being informed and empowered.
And that empowerment comes from having those difficult conversations,
Yeah.
even when it's scary.
It does.
Right.
It takes courage to
Yeah.
have those conversations.
And I think it's important to emphasize
Yeah.
that this episode isn't about diagnosing cheating
Right?
or telling people what to do.
We're not giving relationship advice.
Right. Yeah.
Every relationship is unique.
Right.
And there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah, we're simply exploring the potential signs
Right.
based on insights from therapists.
Based on what the experts say.
Right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to each individual
Ultimately,
to decide how to
principles.
navigate their own relationship.
Right.
Our goal here is to provide you with information
Exactly.
to help you understand
Yeah, quick
the complexities of this issue
Right, the knowledge.
and to empower you
to make the best choices for yourself.
to make your own informed decisions
Right.
and to reiterate
Yes.
open and honest communication
Yeah,
is essential
absolutely.
in any relationship,
It's the foundation.
regardless of the circumstance.
Well, a healthy relationship.
It's the foundation of trust,
Yes.
intimacy,
Yes.
and mutual respect.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Okay.
into the signs of cheating,
All right.
I want to leave you with this thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If you were to have an open and honest conversation
Mm-hmm.
with your partner about trust and boundaries,
Yes.
what are your non-negotiables?
That's a great question.
What are the things that are absolutely essential for you
Mm-hmm.
to feel secure and respected
Yeah.
in the relationship?
Take some time to think about that.
Yeah.
Really reflect on that.
Yeah.
Because knowing your own needs and values
Right.
is the first step in creating the kind of relationship you deserve.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.